Over 2,500 years ago, in a time of warring states and constant conflict in ancient China, a general and philosopher named Sun Tzu wrote down his thoughts on strategy. He wasn't just a thinker, he was a master of the battlefield who understood that war was a grave matter of life and death, a path that could lead to either survival or ruin for a nation. The text he produced, known as The Art of War, was not a celebration of violence or a manual for mindless aggression. Instead, it was a profound guide to understanding conflict itself, a treatise on how to achieve victory with the least amount of struggle and bloodshed possible. It's a book about winning, but more importantly, it's a book about thinking. Today, on September 18, 2025, the world looks vastly different from Sun Tzu's. We are not generals leading armies of chariots across dusty plains. Our battles are more often fought in boardrooms, on athletic fields, or within our own minds as we navigate the challenges of daily life. Yet, The Art of War remains one of the most influential books ever written on strategy. Its wisdom has transcended its original context, providing timeless lessons for presidents and CEOs, football coaches and entrepreneurs, and anyone who seeks to turn obstacles into opportunities. The principles are so fundamental to human competition and interaction that they apply wherever there is a goal, an opponent, and a path to victory. The enduring power of Sun Tzu's work lies in its focus on the psychological and intellectual aspects of conflict over the purely physical. He teaches that the greatest warrior is not the one who fights the most battles but the one who wins without fighting at all. This is the core of his philosophy, that true mastery comes from preparation, understanding, and strategic positioning, not from brute force. He urges us to be like water, adapting to the landscape, avoiding what is strong and striking what is weak. This is not just military advice, it is a profound strategy for navigating the complexities of life with intelligence and grace, a way to conserve our energy for the fights that truly matter. This essay will explore the core tenets of Sun Tzu's philosophy. We will break down his most important lessons, from the critical importance of planning and the art of deception to the necessity of knowing yourself and your opponent. We will see how these ancient strategies for the battlefield can be translated into practical tools for our modern lives. Whether you are trying to launch a new business, get a promotion, lead a team to victory, or simply manage your personal challenges more effectively, the wisdom of Sun Tzu offers a clear and powerful framework for success. It is a guide to thinking smarter, acting decisively, and ultimately mastering the art of strategy in any arena. Sun Tzu placed an almost sacred importance on the act of planning. He believed that the outcome of a battle was not decided by the clashing of swords or the courage of soldiers in the heat of the moment. Instead, victory or defeat was determined long before the first arrow was ever fired. It was decided in the temple, where calculations were made, strategies were debated, and plans were laid. The victorious warrior wins first and then goes to war, he wrote, while the defeated warrior goes to war first and then seeks to win. This single idea is revolutionary. It shifts the focus from the chaos of conflict to the clarity of preparation, suggesting that the fight itself is merely the execution of a pre-won victory. This principle is about doing the hard work up front. Before engaging in any competition, whether it's a business negotiation or a simple argument, you must assess the situation from every possible angle. Sun Tzu identified 5 fundamental factors for this calculation. The way, which is the moral cause and unity; heaven, meaning timing and conditions; earth, the terrain or environment; the commander or the leader's qualities; and method, which covers logistics and discipline. In a modern context, this means understanding your market, knowing the strengths and weaknesses of your team, waiting for the right moment to act, and having a solid, organized plan. A business that launches a product without market research is like a general who marches into battle without a map. Both are counting on luck, and luck is a poor strategy. Think about a championship sports team. Their victory on the final day is not a surprise. It is the culmination of months or even years of relentless preparation. They have studied their opponent's every move, analyzed countless hours of game footage, and practiced their plays until they are second nature. They have a plan for every conceivable scenario. When they step onto the field, they are not hoping to win. They are there to execute a victory that was already secured through their discipline and foresight. This is the essence of Sun Tzu's teaching on planning. The real work is done in the quiet moments of study and preparation, far from the roar of the crowd. For us, this means we must resist the urge to rush into action. In our fast-paced world, We are often rewarded for being busy, for taking immediate action. But Sun Tzu teaches us the power of patience and deliberation. Before you ask for that raise, have you documented your accomplishments and researched industry salary standards? Before you start a difficult conversation, have you considered the other person's perspective and your desired outcome? Winning before the battle begins means showing up so prepared that success becomes the most likely outcome. It is about replacing anxiety with confidence and hope with strategy. The first and most important victory is the one you achieve over your own impulsiveness and lack of preparation. While many might assume a book titled The Art of War is about how to wage war effectively, its most profound lesson is actually about how to avoid it. Sun Tzu states this clearly and unequivocally. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. This is the pinnacle of strategic genius. Any general can destroy a city, but only the greatest can capture it intact. Any leader can crush their competition, but only the wisest can win them over or make their business irrelevant without a costly battle. The goal is not destruction, but submission. It is about achieving your objective completely, with your resources, your army, and your spirit unbroken by the ravages of direct conflict. This philosophy is built on the understanding that open conflict is always costly, even in victory. A prolonged war drains the treasury, exhausts the people, and leaves a legacy of bitterness that can create future enemies. In business, a price war might drive a competitor out of the market, but it also erodes your own profit margins and devalues your product in the eyes of consumers. A public legal battle might win you a settlement, but it can permanently damage your company's reputation. Sun Tzu saw that direct confrontation is a crude and inefficient tool. The highest form of excellence is to achieve your goals so cleverly that your opponent willingly yields or is simply outmaneuvered before the fight can even begin. Consider the way a skilled negotiator operates. They don't walk into a room and make aggressive demands. Instead, they seek to understand the other party's needs, fears, and motivations. They reframe the discussion, looking for common ground and creating a situation where the solution they offer seems like the most logical and beneficial choice for everyone involved. They win the other person over, rather than trying to beat them down. This is a perfect example of subduing the enemy without fighting. The enemy in this case, the opposition to your proposal, is neutralized through intelligence, empathy, and strategic positioning, not through a war of wills. The best outcome is one where both parties feel like they have won. We can apply this principle in our daily interactions. When faced with a disagreement with a friend or family member, the goal should not be to win the argument, which often leaves both people feeling hurt and resentful. The higher path is to de-escalate the conflict, to find a way to resolve the underlying issue without a fight. This might involve balking the enemy's plans, addressing the issue before it becomes a full-blown argument, preventing the junction of their forces, or simply choosing not to engage in a pointless battle. True strength is not the ability to win every fight, but the wisdom to know which fights are worth avoiding altogether. Perhaps the most famous quote from The Art of War is this timeless piece of advice. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. This single aphorism contains the entire framework for strategic success. It is not enough to have a powerful army or a brilliant plan. Victory is contingent upon a deep and honest understanding of both your own capabilities and those of your opponent. It is a formula for invincibility based on knowledge. Knowing yourself is the foundation. This requires a ruthless and objective self-assessment. What are your true strengths? Where are you most vulnerable? What are your resources, both tangible and intangible? What is the morale of your team? A leader who overestimates their own strength or ignores their weaknesses is setting themselves up for disaster. In a business context, this means understanding your company's unique value proposition, its financial health, the skills of its employees, and its operational limits. It's about being brutally honest about what you can and cannot do. Security against defeat, as Sun Tzu says, lies in our own hands. It begins with self-awareness. Equally important is knowing your enemy. You must study your competition with the same intensity that you study yourself. What are their goals? What are their habitual patterns of behavior? Where are they overconfident? Where are they stretched thin? Sun Tzu advocated for the extensive use of spies to gather this information. But in the modern world, our spies are market research, competitor analysis, customer feedback, and industry news. By understanding your opponent's mindset, you can anticipate their moves, you can predict their reactions and prepare your counter moves in advance, you can identify the vulnerabilities they themselves may not even see, giving you the opportunity to defeat them. This dual knowledge creates a strategic asymmetry. When you understand both sides and your opponent only understands their own, or worse, neither, you hold an incredible advantage. Think of a poker player. The best players are not just playing the cards in their hand, they are playing the other players at the table. They are observing their opponent's betting patterns, reading their body language, and building a psychological profile. They know their own tolerance for risk, knowing themselves, and they are constantly gathering information about their opponent's tendencies, knowing the enemy. This complete picture allows them to make informed decisions, to know when to bet big and when to fold, ensuring they come out ahead over the long run. All warfare is based on deception. This is one of Sun Tzu's most stark and powerful declarations. For him, the battlefield was, really a theater of illusion. The goal was to manipulate the enemy's perceptions, to mislead them about your true strength, intentions, and position. If you are strong, you must appear weak to lure the enemy into a state of arrogance and carelessness. If you are weak, you must appear strong to deter an attack. If you are preparing to strike nearby, you must make it seem as though you are mobilizing for a distant campaign. The entire art of maneuvering is to control what your opponent sees and believes, leading them to make, fatal miscalculations. This principle is not about lying for its own sake. It is a sophisticated psychological tool designed to create opportunities and minimize risk. Sun Tzu advises, when able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must seem inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make him believe we are near. This is the art of strategic misdirection. It's about shaping the narrative and controlling the flow of information. By presenting a false picture to your opponent, you encourage them to commit their forces to the wrong place at the wrong time, leaving them vulnerable where you intend to strike. We see this strategy employed constantly in sports. A quarterback looks to one side of the field, drawing the defenders in that direction, only to throw the ball to a receiver on the opposite side. A basketball player fakes a shot to get the defender to jump, then easily drives past them to the basket for an easy layup. In these instances, the athlete is not using superior strength or speed, but superior cunning. They are deceiving their opponent, using a feint to create an opening. The victory comes not from overwhelming the defender, but from outthinking them. This is deception in its purest, most effective form. In business and in life, this strategy is more about subtlety than outright trickery. It can mean keeping a new project or idea under wraps until it is fully developed, preventing competitors from reacting too early. It can mean letting an opponent in a negotiation believe they have the upper hand, making them overconfident and more likely to reveal their true position. It's about managing expectations and not revealing your full hand until the opportune moment. The key is to be formless and mysterious, to keep your opponent guessing. When your enemy cannot discern your true intentions, they cannot form an effective plan against you. You control the game because they don't even know what game is being played. Sun Tzu was a master of physics before the term was even invented. He understood the power of potential energy and momentum, using natural metaphors to explain complex strategic concepts. He wrote about combined energy, which is the force an army generates not from the strength of individual soldiers, but from its unified organization and tactical positioning. A clever commander, he said, does not rely on the bravery of a few heroes. Instead, he builds a situation of such overwhelming advantage that victory becomes inevitable, like the rolling of logs or stones down a steep mountain. The logs themselves are not special, but their position at the top of the hill gives them an unstoppable force. This concept of building potential energy is critical. It's about positioning your forces or your resources in such a way that when you release them, they have a disproportionate impact. In a military sense, this meant concentrating your forces at a single, decisive point. In a modern context, it means focusing your efforts where they will have the greatest effect. A startup company with a limited budget cannot afford to compete with a large corporation across all fronts. Instead, it must find a niche market, a steep mountain, where it can concentrate all its resources and build momentum. By focusing its energy, it can create a force that even a much larger competitor will find difficult to stop. Think about how a dam generates electricity. It doesn't create water, it simply holds it back, accumulating its potential energy behind a massive wall. When a small portion of that water is released through the turbines, the force it generates is immense. This is the strategic principle of pent-up water. A victorious strategist is one who builds this potential before the battle. They wait, they prepare, they position themselves, and they hold their energy in reserve. Then, at the precise moment of opportunity, when the enemy is vulnerable, they release that energy in a sudden, concentrated, and overwhelming burst. The result is a swift and decisive victory. We can use this idea to manage our own energy and productivity. Instead of scattering our attention across a dozen tasks at once, we can focus on one important project at a time, building momentum as we go. Each small success builds on the last, creating a rolling log effect that makes it easier to tackle bigger and bigger challenges. The key is to recognize that consistent, focused effort, applied at the right point, is far more powerful than dispersed, frantic activity. The clever combatant does not seek victory from individuals but from the situation they have created. They let the momentum do the work for them. One of Sun Tzu's most elegant and powerful metaphors is that of water. He advises a general to shape his tactics as water shapes its course according to the nature of the ground over which it flows. Water avoids the high places and hastens to the lowlands, he wrote. So in war, the way is to avoid what is strong and to strike what is weak. This is a beautifully simple yet profound strategic directive. It is a call for flexibility, for adaptability, and for the intelligent application of force. Do not waste your strength by launching a frontal assault on your enemy's strongest position. Instead, be like water and flow around their strengths to strike their unguarded vulnerabilities. This principle requires a keen eye for assessment. The first step is to identify your opponent's centers of gravity, their strongest points. These might be their most experienced troops, their most fortified positions, or in a business context, their flagship product or most loyal customer base. A direct attack on these areas will likely be costly and unsuccessful. The second more important step is to identify their weaknesses. These are the areas they have neglected, the assumptions they have not questioned, the supply lines that are overextended. These are the lowlands where your attack will have the greatest effect with the least resistance. A skillful commander makes his opponent not know where to defend. Consider how disruptive startups often succeed against established industry giants. They rarely try to compete with the giant's primary product head-on. That would be like attacking a fortress at its strongest gate. Instead, they find a weak point. They might offer a simpler, cheaper version of the product that the large corporation has deemed unprofitable. They might focus on a niche customer segment that the incumbent has ignored. Like water seeping into a crack, they find an undefended entry point, establish a foothold, and expand from there. They avoid the strong and strike the weak, and over time they can erode the very foundation of the giant's strength. This is a strategy for efficiency and intelligence in our own lives. When faced with a large, intimidating problem, don't try to solve it all at once with a single massive effort. That is attacking the problem at its strongest point. Instead, break it down. Find the smallest, easiest piece to solve first, the weak point. By solving that part, you gain momentum and a better understanding of the overall problem. You flow around the obstacles rather than trying to smash through them. By consistently applying your energy where it is most effective, you can overcome even the most daunting challenges, just as water, over time, can wear away the hardest stone. While Sun Tzu emphasized meticulous planning, he also knew that no plan survives first contact with the enemy. The battlefield is a dynamic and chaotic environment, and the ability to adapt to changing circumstances is paramount. This is why he stressed the importance of speed and flexibility. Rapidity is the essence of war, he declared. Take advantage of the enemy's unreadiness. Make your way by unexpected routes and attack unguarded spots. Victory belongs to the one who can think and act faster than their opponent, who can seize a fleeting opportunity before it disappears. In a contest between a slow, powerful force and a fast, agile one, Sun Tzu bets on speed every time. Adaptability is the other side of this coin. A general must not be dogmatically attached to a single strategy. He must be able to vary his tactics according to the situation. Sun Tzu speaks of the 5 dangerous faults of a general. which include recklessness, cowardice, a hasty temper, and a delicate sense of honor. These are all forms of rigidity. They are emotional reactions that prevent a leader from making a clear, rational assessment of the situation at hand. A successful leader must be formless, fluid, and unpredictable. They must be willing to abandon a plan that is no longer working and instantly pivot to a new course of action that fits the new reality. Think of a crisis management team responding to an unexpected disaster. They may have had a plan in place, but the reality on the ground is always different. Information is incomplete, conditions are changing by the minute, and new challenges are constantly emerging. The team that succeeds is the one that can adapt. They communicate constantly, process new information quickly, and make decisive choices without getting bogged down by the original plan. They are not afraid to change course when the facts change. Their speed of reaction and their flexibility are their greatest assets, allowing them to stay ahead of the crisis instead of being overwhelmed by it. In our careers and personal lives, this lesson is more relevant than ever. The world is changing at an accelerating pace. Industries are being disrupted, and skills that were valuable yesterday may be obsolete tomorrow. The person who succeeds in this environment is not necessarily the one with the most rigid long-term plan, but the one who is most adaptable. It's the person who is committed to lifelong learning, who can pivot their career when a new opportunity arises, and who is not afraid to abandon an old way of thinking. Like Sun Tzu's ideal general, we must rely not on the enemy not coming, but on our own readiness to receive him, not on the chance of his not attacking, but rather on the fact that we have made our position unassailable through our own agility. Sun Tzu's The Art of War is not just a manual for military conflict, it is a profound guide to the art of living. Its principles are not about aggression but about intelligence. They are not about dominance, but about wisdom. The ultimate lesson is that the path to success in any endeavor, be it business, sports, or personal growth, is paved with preparation, self-awareness, and strategic thinking. It teaches us to see the world not as a series of random events, but as a dynamic system of causes and effects that can be understood and influenced. It gives us a framework for turning obstacles into advantages, and for achieving our goals with grace and efficiency. The core ideas are simple enough for anyone to grasp. First, win before you begin. Do your homework, make your calculations, and show up so prepared that success is the logical conclusion. Second, seek to conquer without fighting. Understand that direct conflict is costly, and that the most elegant victory is the one achieved through clever positioning and psychological influence. Third, know yourself and your opponent. Conduct an honest self-assessment and study the competition, for this knowledge is the bedrock of all strategy. And finally, be like water. Be adaptable, flexible, and willing to flow around obstacles, striking only where your opponent is weak and unprepared. To apply these lessons, you don't need to command an army. If you are launching a product, your planning in the temple is your market research and business plan. If you are in a negotiation, subduing the enemy without fighting is finding a win-win solution. If you are applying for a job, knowing yourself is understanding your resume's strengths and weaknesses, while knowing the enemy is researching the company and its culture. Attacking a weak point could be as simple as highlighting a unique skill that no other candidate has. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to apply strategy. Ultimately, The Art of War is a book about mastering yourself. It teaches you to control your emotions, to resist impulsiveness, and to think several moves ahead. It encourages a mindset of calm, deliberate action over panicked reaction. The principles of deception, speed, and momentum are external tactics, but they are all powered by an internal discipline. The greatest victory Sun Tzu offers is not over an external foe but over your own limitations. By internalizing his wisdom, we learn to navigate the complexities of life with greater foresight, confidence, and success. We learn that the supreme art is not one of war but one of strategy, and its greatest prize is a life well lived.